Perfect. Okay.
Just close the door here. So today's daf is daf Nun Zayin. And there's an introduction here, which I think is very worthwhile. And he says the following: there are two ways that a person could formulate his neder, prohibiting himself from eating peiros. And the nafkamina between these two is going to be what we call gidulim and chilufim.
Sorry, I just need to know if you're coming with me.
I don't think it's kedai. I'm just.
Are you canceling your in-person cheer?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Okay, do you have enough garbages here?
Just 1 second. I have to close the door. So what are these two ways in which he prohibits peros? One way in which he prohibits peros is when he prohibits the entire min. Like, for example, he says, Konam, I won't eat any anavim. Now, in such a case, chilufim are mutter because it's not considered the same min. Again, hopefully this will become clearer as we go along. But there's another situation where he takes a konam on these anavim. He's got grapes sitting in a basket on his table. So let's see the Mishnah. Konam peros ha'elu. In other words, he has in mind certain specific grapes, not the entire min. Or, for example, konam hain. Hain means he points to these grapes that are sitting on his table. Alpi, meaning on myself. Konam hain lefi, or they should be a konam on my mouth. Also, b'chilufim u'b'giduleim. So let's say a few words about chilufim and gidulim. Chilufim means if he sells them and he gets money in return, he's not allowed to have any benefit from the money. And gidulim means if he takes these fruits and he plants them in the ground and they sprout, he's also in the peros that grow from the sprouts. Now, all this is because he had in mind specific peros. He did not prohibit the min. The next case in the Mishnah is going to be where he prohibited the min. He says, I won't eat anavim at all. Now, what's the difference? If he has specific peros in front of him, then that's called poret esa peros. He specifies these peros. And when he does so, he indicates that he wants an absolute isur. Let's call it an isur gamur. And an isur gamur includes any benefit whatsoever that he gets from these fruits, but he's not interested in the min. He didn't prohibit, in an abstract sense, all anavim, but these specific anavim. Now the Mishnah says, what happens if he prohibits the min? And that's called shani ochel v'shani toem. Right, so he takes a konam on all anavim, not on any specific anavim. Then he only prohibits himself on that which belongs to that min. But mutar b'chilufeim u'b'giduleim. Now I understand well chilufeim because he sold the peros, or let's say he switched these peros with a different min. Let's say I made a swap with you, an exchange. I gave you a novim and you gave me zaysim. So I'm not also the zaysim because I took a neder on a novim. Giduleim is a little bit more complicated. If he plants these anovim in the ground, then why aren't the gidulim also? That's what I'm perplexed about. Why aren't the gidulim that grow from the anovim, why aren't they considered that same min? So I'm going to have to leave that question as an outstanding question. If you see anything, let me know. Now, he quotes Rishonim here, the Rashba, that in the first case, in the ratio where he prohibits these specific anovim, that becomes like hegdesh. So what's the equation to hegdesh? So what I understand is that hegdesh means a distinction between chulin and hegdesh. So this is hegdesh and this is chulin. So you have two things that belong to the same min. One of them became hegdesh, he was magdish. The other, which belongs to the same min, it's also on novim, but it's not hegdesh. And that's what happens here in the ratio when he prohibits those anovim that are on the table in front of him. And secondly, with regard to hegdesh, there's a halacha of an isur chilufim ugidulim. And that has something to do with the way hegdesh operates. But in the case where he takes a kodev on the min, that's not considered like hegdesh. And then it's only asur bin, and chilufeim, and maybe even giduleim is not considered the same min. Okay, now we go back to which case now? The Sefer case. What's in the Sefer case? We said that in the Sefer case, where he took a neder on the min, then he's mutter b'giduleim. And the Mishnah now qualifies that and restricts that. And says, B'domer shezaro kolen, the heter on the kodim on the min, vis-a-vis the gidulim, that only applies if by planting, actually now I'm beginning to think out loud that this might answer my previous question. This heter only applies with zaro kola. Now I'm not sure exactly what the English word is. Maybe you'll help me with the English word. In Hebrew, it's called rikavon. Rikavon means it like disintegrates. When you plant something, there are two possibilities. One possibility is that it sprouts from the actual tree itself. Like we'll see the case of an onion. You put an onion in the ground, and there are gidulim that come out of the onion. But the onion itself is not kola. It doesn't disintegrate. But on the other hand, if let's say you would plant grains like wheat or barley or other seeds, then it disintegrates in the ground. That's called zaro kola. And then the gidulim no longer have the same status as the original pre, because the original pre is completely gone. Now here we introduce another element into the equation. This is very complicated, because in the Sefer he said she'eni toeg. So in gidulim at least, whether or not he's tasting the original pre So he has the taste of the min. That depends upon whether zaro kola or ain't zaro kola. So if it's zaro kola, then we're going to say that whatever grows from these chitin and siorim, after the original chitin and siorim disintegrate into the ground, that's called zaro kola, that doesn't have the time of the pri itself. Again, I'd have to do a scientific experiment to see if what I'm saying is correct, but that's what I understand. If it's ein zaro kola, like for example, onions or garlic, where the original onion or garlic still remains intact in the ground, it's just something grows out of it, like leaves that sprout from it, then we say it has the original tam, and therefore belongs to that konum on the min, is afilu giduleim also. Okay, now we have to introduce another element in the equation. This is so complicated. Let's say you take these onions and you plant them in the ground, and you have gidulim. Now you take these gidulim and you plant them in the ground. That's called gidulim. So in the case of ein zaro kola, like shuman bitzolim, it keeps reproducing itself. So if you plant the onions, whatever you get from the onions that grow, now you replant that, you'll again get something that has the taste of the onions. So that even in the case of the Sefer, where he prohibited on himself the min, nevertheless, and we said there that gidulim are mutter, nevertheless, that's only because zaro kola, and we no longer have the taste of the onion. But if it's ein zaro kola, so you still have the taste of the onion, then even if you plant that gidulim and you produce gidulim, that all has the same taste of the onion. Now there's a gigantic chiddush over here that has to do with rov and miyut and the din of bittul. The reason why gidulim is asur is not because it's identical to the original shum or batzal, but rather because it has something of the shum or batzal still in it. There's still some vestige, some tam mu'urav. It's a tarovis. So apparently, there are in the gidulim, there are some elements of something extraneous to the original batzal, but there's still something left in the original batzal. So that growth now is a taroves that has both elements of the original isur and elements of heter that are growth that's extraneous to the batzal. And even if the rov, which is usually enough for bittul, is the heter part, nevertheless, the isur generates an isur on the rov. The miyut is not batul the rov. And that's based on a principle called davar sheyesh lo matirin. Because Nedarim is always considered a davar sheyesh lo matirin, even if there are 1,000 of heter against one of isur, it's not batul, because that's called the davar sheyesh lo matirin. And the Gemara later on, Daf Test, is going to establish that Nedarim are considered a davar sheyesh lo matirin because he can always go to the Chacham to be shoel on his neder. Okay? That's what we have so far in this very, very long Mishnah. Now the Mishnah says the following: Ha'omer li ishto konam masa yodayich olai. Now there's certain malachos that a woman, in the context of marriage, does for the family. For example, afia, tvia, tchina, bishul, and her husband takes upon himself a konam that he won't allow himself to benefit from hamaisi yadayim. Or he says, konam hein al pi, konam hein lefi, asur. What does this mean, asur? We know that he can't benefit from that which she baked or cooked or wove or embroidered or ground. She grinds the kernels of wheat and makes flour out of that, we know. But the chilufim u'b'giduleim, he's even also in benefiting from chilufim. Now, what's chilufim here? He says here that chilufim is peros shenasnu la b'schar masa yodel, which, if I understand correctly, means that she exchanged the bread that she baked with a neighbor who gave her in return a bowl of cherries. And the husband is also to benefit from these cherries. That's called chilufim or giduleim. If, let's say, she plants a tree, that's also considered maisi yadayim. The fruits that grow on the tree are called giduleim, and they're considered asur and included in the neder. Now, why is this so? This is parallel to the ratio of the Mishnah when he prohibited on himself specific perils. And we said that's like Hegdesh. Why is this case also specific? Because he specified certain particular maisi yadayim. Or alternatively, again, there are a lot of different commentaries here, that he prohibited on himself dafka maisi yadei ishto. So that's called like as if he specified. Or alternatively, another interpretation is that he has some of hamaisi yadayim in front of him on the table, and others elsewhere. They're locked up in a closet or in a fridge. So he prohibited himself on these specific maisi yadayim, these breads. So in that case, it's similar to Hegdesh, and it's similar to the ratio of our Mishnah of Konam Peros Elu. So this is like an Elu case. However, if he takes a neder of Shani Ochel Shani Toem, Mutter b'chilufeim u'b'giduleim. So if I understand correctly here, in this particular case, he is prohibiting on himself in a neder Hanos Maisi Yodel. He's not prohibiting Hanos Maisi Yodel, but Achila Oteima from that which she prepared. So let's say she bakes a loaf of bread, then he's prohibited from that loaf of bread. But he doesn't prohibit himself from chilufeim and giduleim. I'll read to you the Ran. He says in the name of the Ran here, in the Resha of Homer Lishto Kono Maisi Adayim, Kol Oser Es Atzmo B'Miktas Min Adovar V'Chol Ashar Muterlo. So when he says Maisi Adayim, then he's limiting the Isa. V'Niskaven V'Kach Sheha Isa Yeh Osli Olav Kehegdish. So again, the emphasis seems to be on the concept of miktas and kehegdesh, and that's l'chumra. Then he's also b'anoah b'chilufim u'b'gidulim. Why? Because then it becomes like hegdesh because it's on miktas. In the Sefer, shani ochel, shani toem, where it's mutter b'chilufim u'b'gidulim, he offers a different explanation for the heter. And that is shelo osar al atzmo el achila o teimas gufa dova. When he adds shani ochel shani toem, he means to say that this particular object, this lechem that she prepared, is awesome, but nothing else is awesome. So by emphasizing shani ochel shani toem, he's limiting the scope of these. A lot of these distinctions are very, very subtle. They're not always crystal clear. Now, once again, the Mishnah is going to say that when we're matir the gidulim, that's only the davar shezaro kola, right? So when it's zaro kola and now something grows from it, like let's say she plants chitim that she had grown, and now she plants the chitim again, that which grows from the chitim no longer has the same tam as the original chitim, which were maisi adel. Aval davar she'ein zaro kola, let's say she plants and produces onions or garlic, and when she plants the full-grown onions, which are obviously also the neder, but now she plants it in the ground, and there are shoots that come out of the, the onion, but the original onion is still intact, is then afilu gidulim asur. Now the Mishnah has another case. A man takes a konom, or this has to do with the halach of Tanai, Sha'at osa eni ochel ad ha-pesach. Or Sha'at osa eni miskasa b'ad ha-pesach. So we have achila and ksus. Also, so lifnei Pesach, mutulo lechel is kasas achar Pesach. So when he adds the t'nai of Ada Pesach, he's saying to himself in this neder that I will not eat the food that you prepare until the Pesach. But after Pesach, the neder is no longer chal, and he's allowed to eat from the food that she prepared or to wear the clothes that she manufactured. And the Ran adds, Shemashmos Dvarov, Shehizkir Azman Ada Pesach. And where did he attach those words, Ada Pesach, to the Isur Neder itself? Right? He says, At Osa Eni Ochel. Eni Ochel Ada Pesach. So the Ada Pesach is immediately qualifying and restricting the Isur Achila. So he indicates his will to create an Isur Hanoah from these things that she produced, food or clothing, but only until the Zman HaPesach. What's the next case? In the next case, he says, Shad osa ada Pesach, eni ochel. He adds the words ada Pesach and connects them with at osa, or Shad osa ada Pesach, meaning ksus and malbush that you create out of Pesach, eni miskasa. So the eni ochel, the eni miskasa comes after the words out of Pesach. What does that indicate? It indicates that he's saying that anything that you create out of Pesach, eni ochel, eni miskasa, period. And therefore the Mishnah says, also solofnei Pesach, also lecho iskasos achar Pesach. So he's not putting a time limitation in the neder. He's putting a time limitation in the Masechet, in the work that she did. Once she did that work within that time frame, meaning before Pesach, that becomes us. And where do you see that in the Lashon HaNeder? Where's that reflected in the formulation of the neder? Because he adds the words Ad Pesach to the At Osa. And he's telling you that as far as the Asiyah is concerned, that Asiyah was out of Pesach. But Eni Ochel means that if there was an Asiyah before Pesach, then it's completely awesome, forever and ever. Okay, now we get to Tanakh. It's the month of Adar, and he says to his wife, Konom Sha'at Nenes Li Ada Pesach, Imolechas At Lebeis Avich Ada Chag. Chag means Sukkos. And he says that you are not allowed to benefit from me until Pesach if you will go to your father's house, so you visit your father up until Sukkot, 6 months later. Holchel Lifnei Pesach. So she already was Makayim the Tanai, and she visited her father before Pesach, which she was not supposed to do, and she's not even supposed to visit him after Pesach, before Sukkot, is Asur Ba'nada Pesach. In other words, since she already fulfilled the Tanai, the Neder is Chal, and if she would benefit from him before Pesach, then she violates Bal Yachol Dvaro, and she violates the Neder. Now, immediately after Pesach, she's allowed to have Hanon.